Minimalists.
How did you navigate moving in together when it came to both of your guys' items?
I pretty much just wrote a list of what Mariah could and couldn't keep.
Yeah. There was only one thing on that list.
No, there was the list. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, it wasn't really. It was super easy and simple. I had a lot of stuff, as I said earlier. Maybe that wasn't on this podcast, but when we first met, I was interested in the minimalism thing just because I hadn't really heard anything about it. So I asked him about it, and he sent me a video, which I ended up watching all of because as I was watching it, I was picking up the piles and piles of clothing all around my room. And it just made a lot of sense that if I didn't have all this stuff, I would probably be freer, be less tied down in a way. And so they were actually on tour. They were on their 100-city tour when we moved in. And so for the first few months before we moved in, I had started just looking through my stuff and deciding what I wanted to keep and not, and realizing that I had things like 2 VCRs and no TV. And I was like, okay, maybe I should reevaluate the things that I'm holding on to. And so I probably got rid of, I'd say 80% of my stuff before we moved in together.
Now, did he ever try to convince you to get rid of anything?
No, the only thing that he did say was that he would prefer if I got rid of my furniture. Like I had this couch set that I got a really good deal on, so it was super ugly, but it was like comfortable and super cheap.
I didn't say she had to do anything.
No, he did not. No. He said his preference was that I not bring those couches.
Can we please not have those couches in there? Yeah.
And so I had no attachment to them. Like I said, I just got them because there was a defect or something, so I got them super.
It was a good deal. They were comfy.
They were super comfy. But we kind of wanted to make it, our place. And so, yeah, it was super easy. I just brought my cat and maybe 50 pairs of shoes.
Oh, that's right.
And some clothes and stuff.
And how many shoes do you think you have now?
Like 10.
Wow. And all of that from no convincing. What's fascinating, we talked about earlier in the episode, we talked about the Denver event that we had, and this woman comes up and tries to get us to convince her husband, who's in the audience, to get rid of some of his stuff. And it's like, well, Ryan didn't even convince his wife, who had a ton of stuff when they first met. There was no convincing there, because the best way to convince someone is not to convince them at all. It's to show them the benefits through not here's a list of the benefits, Mariah. If you got rid of your shoes, you're going to be, according to this data here, you're 87% happier with fewer shoes. It doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
And so it was never about trying to persuade you. It was helping you understand some of the benefits for you, which are different from Ryan. Now, I'll tell you, Bex and I have one other thing that really helps us, and I don't know, Jessica, if this would help you at all, but we don't bring anything new into the house unless we've both agreed on it.
Same, yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really helpful about that is, and sometimes it can be a little frustrating because, I want to bring this one thing in, or she wants to bring this one thing in. Usually it's she wants to bring this one thing in. And she, meaning Ella, our daughter. And we just have to agree on it together. And it's not to deprive ourselves, but it's to be more thoughtful about the things that we accumulate. Because ultimately, most of the things I've ever brought into my life, I have a little bit of regret for ever buying them.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, like, you have to go out of your way. You have to look for reasons to support your partner's preferences. If you do that, like, not only does it it becomes a joy to, like, support your partner's preferences, but also then your partner in turn will start to support your preferences.
Yeah.
And if they don't, well, then that's a totally different conversation.
Red flag.
Yeah. And the thing is like, a lot of people, like, that wife, that woman, the wife of the man with the stuff in the garage, how do I convince my husband? It's like, well, how have you gone out of your way to support what his preferences are? Right now, you're just laying a preference down, but, like, how have you gone out of your way? And then we were able to help her see, like, if you actually think about it, like, he's going out of his way to do what he can, with there were a couple things. She's like, well, he tried to do this and he tried to do that. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, he's going out of his way to support your preference. He's trying to do what he can. So what are you doing that you can do to help support his preferences? But like, that is, I mean, I feel like that not just with, Mariah, my romantic partner, but any partner, man, any friendship, family relationship. I mean,
any other person.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, making of demands was what she was doing in Denver. It doesn't work. And I think if Ryan would have came to you and said, hey, Mariah, you have 130 pairs of shoes. I demand you get rid of 120 pairs of shoes. Let's say you even complied with his demand. You wouldn't feel as good about the relationship right now as you do, even though it's the same exact outcome.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is because that wouldn't be compassionate on his part. It would have been unloving on his part to demand that from you.
Yeah.
True. And I think it helped that I grew up in a household where most of the arguments were around how much stuff was in the house. My dad wanted there to be not so much stuff, and my mom wanted to hold on to everything. And so I think growing up in this turmoil of how much stuff is appropriate for a household, when he brought up minimalism, and I was watching actually it was a talk that you guys did. It was just like a question and answer.
The thing. Seattle talk.
Okay.
And it just like clicked with me, like, wow, like this could be, just my mind went blank.
Well, yeah, I mean,
a better way to start a relationship is on the same page about stuff, as opposed to not caring or even being aware of another person's preference and then trying to push your preference onto them later.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You saw the
Absolutely.
tension that created in your household
Exactly.
growing up, and you didn't want to replicate that tension in your relationship because you knew that was not desirable. Any sort of tension like that is going to lead to some discontent within you. And so the best way to avoid that is to not bring it in the first place, right?
Yeah. Your dad was like so into before I even went to your parents' house, he was very into the minimalism thing. And and now I understand why he was so excited about it. He's like, oh, yeah, man, you need to talk to my wife. But
She's
man,
getting it.
and your mom's awesome. Your mom is so awesome.
Now, before we get to our last question, when you met Ryan, he looked different than what he looks now. He was closer to corporate Ryan, even though he was growing his hair out at the time. I remember this.
Yeah.
This is a little shorter.
Yeah.
I used to straighten my hair.
Did he still have his beard at the time?
He did, but when we actually met, our first date, it was after a Halloween party. We both went to different Halloween parties the night before, and he had actually shaved off his beard.
So I was Garth. Or no, I was Wayne from Wayne's World.
So he was baby
clean shaven because he's clean shaven, yeah.
Oh, wow.
and I was a little disappointed.
Yeah.
I thought you were Luigi that year.
No, that was
Then you would've had a
that was in
mustache.
Peaburg. Which I don't even know. That was the lamest costume. But anyway. One of the things she has said to me, she's like, I really liked, the profile picture I had up. She's like, you had the perfect amount of scruff. So so like I try to keep it like this, but then, and guys will understand this. You're like, I'll shave tomorrow.
I shave my legs every day.
I'll shave. Right. Exactly. Right. Women are on it. Women are on it. I mean, I shave my legs every day too, but it's the beard. Even if you grew your hair out on your leg, that's still.
Oh, it's for me, not for you.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, so I try to keep it like this length because I know that's her preference. But that is one thing where I'm just like, I'll put it off to tomorrow. And then I get compliments when I start to grow it out.
Right.
People will be like, man, I'm really liking the beard. I'm like, yeah, well, my wife does not.
Well, it's funny because we've gone through these stages. I remember when we first started the Minimalists, Ryan and I were in the corporate world. It's been 11 years now. And, so Ryan was still very corporate Ryan. He had the short cut hair and he was clean shaven, or he'd have a 5 o'clock shadow. And that was sort of one iteration. And then we started to move to Montana, and he grew his hair out a little bit. And then he grew this big beard. Remember the 2013 pictures with me, you, and Colin? You had a big old beard.
I just wanted to see how thick I could like grow the beard out and how full it would. And it turns out like It's just not a very full beard.
I think if you Google image search Ryan, you'll find the different iterations of Ryan Nicodemus.
For sure.
And now you've sort of, around 2014, 2015 is when this aesthetic developed. And it's like, oh, I feel like I found me in a way. I've sensed that about you.
Yeah.
And now the new you is going to be a mullet.
Oh, dude, I'm so tempted. I wrote to Oya. Oya is the gal who cuts my hair and Mariah's hair for that matter. She's an awesome lady. We've talked about her on the podcast before. But I was like, will you can you do a mullet for me? Like if I want you to do that? She's like, look. She's like, do you remember in the Wedding Crashers where they're arguing over, there's like a kid talking to a balloon maker.
Yeah.
He's like, the kid wants a dog. And the guy's like, do you really want a dog? I mean, I'll do a dog for you, but I don't want to make you a dog out of this balloon. And the kid's like, I want a dog. He's like, fine, you can have your freaking dog. She's like, that's how I would feel with this. Like, I'll do it for you. She's like, but I don't think you should do it. Or no, she's like, I don't want to do it is what it was. She's like, but I'll do it for you. So anyway, TBD, comment on this episode if I should get a mullet or not.
Yeah, let us know, patrons.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists private podcast available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.